Hi everybody, my name is Kazamia and I am Associate Professor at the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. I am a faculty member of the Architecture Department and I am teaching interior design courses. The title of my presentation is Sustainable Interior Design, a Model to Promote Sustainable Practices. This paper examines the effectiveness of a range of methodologies designed to provide future researchers and practitioners with an entree into the literature of sustainable interiors and to develop, apply, and evaluate methods to promote the uptake of sustainability in the discipline and practice of interior design. The research questions that were answered in order to achieve the aim of the research are: first, to what extent does the proposed model promote sustainable practices among designers and clients? And second, which sustainable practices are the more widespread among designers and their clients? The paper develops into 4 parts. First, the literature review, which is separated into 3 parts: context and background of the research, sustainability and interior design practice, the theoretical background, then the methodology, where within the study framework an action research methodology was chosen. We proceed with the results. The structure of the results presentation follows the research theoretical framework and the model that has been introduced. For that reason, the results are presented in 3 parts. The presentation finishes with some literature review. The context and the background of the research. Today, the socio-political environment is changing rapidly, with Cyprus becoming an official member of the European Union, which brought environmental protection to the forefront and made it a political priority. In Europe, processes and procedures have been set and laws have been adopted that make environmental protection a fundamental social objective. Cyprus has consequently adopted the resulting institutional framework and included in its legislation more than 300 directives and regulations and a range of related action plans concerning environmental protection. The practice of interior design could be supported and regulated in Cyprus by 2 professional associations of interior design. Although this is not the case, as these organizations are registered as professional organizations, but the profession of interior design is not legally regulated in Cyprus. Concerning the interior design practice, Stuart Brand notes that interior designers are in most cases dealing with the layers that are closer to the surface and therefore require faster replacement. Consequently, the decisions they make are crucial for the longevity of the life cycle of the building. As Brand also noted, the lifespan for stuff or objects, it's 5 to 15 years. For space, it's 5 to 20 years. This shows the importance of the professional practice in the discipline, and it is important to note here that this research is the first indication for relevant to sustainability actions among the designers in sustainability and interior design practice. In this part, the scope of sustainability in interior design practice is clarified by explaining the ways in which an interior designer can contribute towards sustainability in practice. The 2 major issues of interior design practice, those with faster replacement cycles, were chosen for further study and classification of tangible sustainable practices that can be promoted among stakeholders. These are approaches for materials or objects and approaches for space design. As Brand noted, stuff and space. Approach for the use of new materials suggests the use of life cycle assessment instead of the conventional linear model, so to make sure that material at the end of its lifespan will become the resource for something new. The example shows a new sustainable material, acry fiber board. Approach for the use of multi-purpose furnishings suggests the use of adaptable furnishings. In this case, furnishings that can be used in different ways will serve various functions. The example presents the work of Milan-based designer Emanuele Maggini, who has created a sofa, bed and a chair which, when put together, create the object known as sosia. Approach for the use of recycled materials suggests the selection of objects that have been designed from recycled materials gathered from the community and processed in small workshops employing local workers and represent an enhanced and holistic embodiment of sustainability. The example below show how designers used a recycled aluminum can taken from the recycling center in order to use them and create a series of CTs for the Dan Region Association Center of Environmental Education in Hyria, Israel. Approach for the use of flexible space design suggests spaces that can accommodate different needs of different users as the years pass, from parents to children or different tenants, with a minimum cost. Design is more effective when it allows for maximum flexibility of spatial configuration within a given structure, as this preserves the building structure as a whole. The example is by Woodroffe and shows furniture that emerge from walls, floors and ceilings. Approach for the use of reclaimed materials. The waste of or rubbish from one business is treasure for another business. By reusing materials, we conserve energy, resources, and landfill space, while reducing disposal, greenhouse gas emissions, and purchasing costs. The following example and the use of cork is chosen due to the extensive consumption of wine in Cyprus and generally in the European region. The material itself is flexible with the ability of going through different processes and therefore able to take different forms and shapes in order to produce a vast number of new products and uses. The approach for the use of design for deconstruction suggests designing details for deconstruction at the start of a project to enable one building at the end of its useful lifespan to be the resource for the next and helps close the loop for resource use. Example of application show a well-known pavilion by Xanthor. It is the Swiss pavilion at Expo in Hanover. The theoretical background. The literature review focused on the three-step model of change to manage change on the qualities of the affective learning domain to affect emotions and values, and on learning approaches to facilitate learning. The three-step model of change includes unfreezing, that involves finding a method of making it possible for people to let go of an old pattern that was counterproductive in some way. Second, the change stage, that involves a process of change in thoughts, feeling, behavior, or all three that is in some way more liberating or more productive. And three, refreezing, which refers to establishing the change as a new habit so that it now becomes the standard operating procedure. The three-step model of change, and to complete this model, it was necessary to define how the felt need for change would be transmitted and how stakeholders would adapt new behaviors in the context of this study. This was achieved by reviewing learning theories and considering how one can change through learning. For example, the elaboration likelihood model by Pitti and Jacobo and the social learning theory by Bandura were examined. Additional Bloom's taxonomy of affective domain classification was investigated further. According to Krathol, the affective domain is classified into 5 subcategories: receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization, and includes the way we deal with things emotionally, such as feelings, values, appreciation, enthusiasm, motivation, and attitudes. The consideration of the affective domain in learning for the stakeholders was important, as we wanted them to alter their attitudes towards design. Moreover, several learning approaches seemed suitable for contributing to the behavioral alterations required in this study. For example, problem-based learning is an approach which is widely used in professional education, and it is frequently built around collaborative learning strategies. After reviewing above a number of change and learning theories and other literature on issues that impact learning, the proposed model merges the selected change model with the domain of affective learning and combines selected teaching approaches in order to facilitate change towards a more sustainable interior design. The methodology. Within the study framework, an action research methodology was chosen. This action research contributes to the concerns of sustainable interior design practice and applies the necessary approach that will facilitate learning and active engagement of stakeholders. Action research is a participatory research method which is usually performed in groups of people who are active in an area and allow participants to explore solutions to real problems which concern them. The selected action research suggests scheduled cycles of actions in 3 phases as seen on the diagram. Concerning the population and sample of the research, all the 54 designers, members of the association, involved and then continued on a voluntary basis. Regarding clients, using a stratified random sample, the population was first divided into subgroups. The target population and the sampling frame were the same in all respects. Further, 2 groups, clients and designers, of non-participants were interviewed after every phase. The dependent variables of the research are the classified sustainability practices as follow: use of new materials, use of recycled materials, use of reclaimed materials, use of multipurpose furnishing features and equipment, use of flexible space design, and use of the design for deconstruction principle. For the collection of the data and in order to study changes in attitudes and behavior of participants, a questionnaire has been designed. Further, a formalized interview with some open questions was done face-to-face, and also observer reports were employed. Parallel to that, a number of case studies were presented. Results. The structure of the results presentation follows the research theoretical framework and the model that has been introduced. For that reason, the results are presented in 3 parts. Part 1 describes the results of Phase 1 and the unfreezing step according to the model. The results show that more than 65% of designers value being provided information from their association, and 70% said they would attend workshops in their area. Also, at this stage, it was acknowledged among the interior designers that there was a need for professional advancement and progression on sustainable issues. Additionally, more than 98% of clients strongly agreed that they are interested in an interior designer with knowledge and experience on sustainable practices. Clients were also willing to open up to new experiences, get involved and participate in the scheduled intervention. Part 2 describes the results of Phase 2, the change step that focuses on how much participants value the new information. Designers were asked to make a choice between sustainable space and sustainable material practices. the figure shows that space practices were chosen by 46.2%, materials practices by 23.1%, and 30.8% of the persons selected both options. When the questions was repeated after the intervention, only 23 selected space, none selected materials, and 76.9% selected both. As far as clients, although the participants' answers are still in the range of strongly agree and agree, a shift towards strongly agree opinion is observed. The strongest shift towards strongly agree is observed in interior design should develop and implement a deconstruction plan, where for phase 1 we observe 53.6% of the participants strongly agree to the statement, while in phase 2 the proportion increased to 67.9%. Part 3 describes the results of phase 3, the refreezing step. The designers admitted that they now, after seeing examples and after the collaboration with their clients, have a better understanding of how they can perform and act using the information given during the previous interventions. Some other designers comment that the process of preparing and presenting the proposals was the most enlightening experience. Also, clients acknowledged that the issue of sustainability is now clearly related with interior design. This suggests that being part of the action research was important for the stakeholders. Additionally, according to the observer, the participants' behavior is now consistent with personal value set, and as he noted, both designers and clients said publicly that after the previous interventions, this exhibition was the expected intervention to take place. Further, from interviews, it was revealed that non-participants' understanding on the interior design sustainability practices is restricted to the use of natural materials and energy efficient. Also, as confirmed by the results, non-participants' attitudes have not changed and do not seem to be ready to implement the promoted sustainable practices. Concluding remarks. The proposed model has been applied employing an action research methodology in 3 distinct cycles. The first cycle manages to unfreeze stakeholders' attitudes and explore important sustainability issues. This has been achieved through interventions with presentation and hands-on work that took place among interior designers and clients alike, in order to allow the transmission of information to the concerned stakeholders. The second cycle of action research directed to change stakeholders' attitudes, encourage them to share personal experiences and discussions on sustainable practices. This was achieved through collaboration with other stakeholders and presentations, workshops undertaken to present and communicate the range of sustainable practices to the concerned stakeholders. Meanwhile, the third cycle of the action research targets to refreeze the attitudes of stakeholders. This was accomplished by setting up an exhibition wherein the participants presented different projects derived from the previous phases. The design and monitoring of both individual and team presentations allowed participants to translate their goals into actions. The results of this research indicate that the model developed managed to involve the stakeholders to an extent that alters their behavior. Meanwhile, the low involvement of another 2 groups of designers and clients, non-participants, did not permit the alteration of any behavior. Consequently, the adaptation of the proposed model to promote sustainable practices that incorporate specific objectives, along with the classification of sustainable practices, can mark the transition towards sustainable interior design schemes. Thank you.